Oi, oi, alright, how's it going? I'm Grant, you're you. This is the Doodle Review coming through with another album to give a spin, chat some fraff about, and assign an arbitrary score to. Today, it's the turn of the stalwart Gainesville punks Hot Water Music. VOWS is the band's 10th album, released in this, their 30th year of being a band. Earlier, back in March, I was actually lucky enough to see the band at Islington Academy as part of their 30th anniversary tour, and it was amazing. They ripped through about 22 songs, touching on almost every album, I think. And to me, and we'll get onto this later, Chuck Ragan's bellowing vibrato can feel a bit overdone on record, but live, to see and feel the power of that voice come out of someone is crazy, and doing that while absolutely beating the shit out of his guitar just makes it even more exhilarating. Among the set list were actually 3 songs from this latest record, and I wish in hindsight I'd been more familiar, because as it goes, they're now some of my favourites, especially Remnants and Burn Forever. I remember them sounding good, but you know what it's like when you're at a show and you're not really familiar with the tracks. You just kind of like washes over you. As a long-time fan of the Flatliners, one of the coolest things about the live show is actually seeing just how well the frontman and songwriter of that band, Chris Cresswell, fits into Hot Water Music, taking the place of now departed co-vocalist and guitarist Chris Wallard. Wallard for sure left massive shoes to fill, but honestly, although I never saw the band live during that Wallard era, to me it seems like Cresswell is absolutely doing the position justice, and it's even more gratifying when you realise how wild it must be for him starting out in a band that absolutely would have counted Hot Water Music as a big influence, and now touring the world and writing songs with them. It must be mad. It's well deserved, and hopefully this new full-time position as part of a revered act like Hot Water Music has seen a few more people check out the Flatliners too. If you aren't already aware of them, I strongly recommend checking them out. Their album Cavalcade is a bit of a modern punk classic, if you ask me. Speaking of Cresswell, his elevated position on VOWS is a highlight for me on this record. On the previous one, Fill the Void, we were only treated to, I think, one song featuring the songwriting and the singing of the snarling but melodic Canadian, and while it was certainly a highlight due to it being a one-off, it kind of felt like more of a guest spot rather than being truly part of the band. Here on VOWS, Cresswell gets way more time in the spotlight, this time leading on 2 of the 12 tracks, and as an even surer sign of the guitarist-vocalist's full immersion into the band, he actually duets with the core vocals of Reagan on the opening Menace, and then later on with Burn Forever. I found Flatliners before Hot Water Music, so there could be a bit of bias at play when I say these songs are all among my favourites of the record, but I think the energy Cresswell brings to a track like Burn Forever, with that opening scratchy chuggy riff that feels very typical of his thrashy punk guitar style, it really propels the song forward and balances that kind of Boys of Summery hook you get on the chorus, a vibe that could easily veer into melodramatic kind of OTT syrupy, dare I say it, corny territory if it didn't have that engine behind it. And I think I notice it more because of a few of the tracks here to me that kind of do fall a bit foul of being that kind of melodramatic style, and they don't have the blistering energy kind of underpinning it, making it feel a bit bland and kind of corny for me. The tracks I'm thinking of with this are Bury Us All and the closer Much Love. It doesn't help that the sentimentality for me is undercut, because every time Reagan passionately sings the words much love, I can't help but think of Phone Jacker's Terry Tibbs' Much Love. As I mentioned up top, I feel like in this later era of Hot Water Music, Chuck Ragan's booming, gravelly vibrato is of course incredible and powerful, but at points, especially in those sentimental dramatic moments, the vibrato has gotten so acute and kind of operatic, it gets weirdly like Iron Maiden. It's got like a Bruce Dickinson-esque quality to it. It comes through more in the studio when they're getting the very cleanest takes, rather than live where it's brought back down to earth with the rawness where you hear some breaks and some cracks. And that's not an overt criticism, because at the end of the day, like, what a voice. But for me, someone who's pretty averse to anything overly earnest, it does make it harder for me to really engage with one of those songs. I actually hear this most notably on Searching for Light from the beginning. One of the key characteristics of Hot Water Music that had me absolutely beaming from the first time I heard them was the unusually dexterous and adventurous bass playing of Jason Black. And while VOWS makes me happy in its biggest spotlight of Cresswell, at the same time I feel like this one has a bit of a diminished presence from Jason Black. Don't get me wrong, the low end is absolutely rock solid from start to finish, and there are many well-timed, perfectly played fills. I just don't hear anything crazy at the level of some of those lines we got in a track like Drag My Body from Exister or One Step to Slip from Caution. I did find myself wondering whether in part it could be that it's harder to work that stuff in when you have a rhythmically more frantic guitarist in Cresswell. At the end of the day, you also wouldn't want to have anything like shoehorned in to make the sound overcrowded, but part of the fun of Hot Water Music album for me are those creative bass lines, and I didn't hear quite as many come to the forefront this time around. While bass might not be, guests are a massive feature on VOWS. This record sees Hot Water Music joined by other artists on 5 of the 12 tracks overall. Highlights include, surprisingly for me because I dislike this artist's music so much, Dallas Green of City and Colour on After the Impossible. Here the usually quiet emo folk artist brings a welcome change and different direction when he pops up, most notably on the bridge of that track. We also get turns from Turnstile's Brendan Yates and Daniel Fang on Remnants. A full circle moment for them, as their band I believe is actually named after a Hot Water Music track, as well as some potent ohs from Thrice on Fences. Additional turns from The Interrupters on Much Love and Calling Hours on Wildfires don't really do much for me, but I think that's more the songs than their contribution specifically. I just find these ones among the kind of blandest on the album. Production wise, the band is reunited with Brian McTernan, the producer who helped bring to life much of the band's classic material, and as such the sound here is really strong, punchy and visceral when needed, and atmospheric when a song calls for it. A highlight for me is actually the track Remnants, which while I think maybe doesn't need all that additional percussion, but hey, the Turnstile drummer has to do something, I guess, but the track goes between this kind of almost funky rhythm in the groove of the verse to this anthemic and quite emotive chorus, and sonically these differing vibes are handled perfectly. Overall, this is a bit of a mixed bag for me. Some absolute bangers for sure, like Burn Forever, Remnants and Chewing on Broken Glass, but some kind of bland sepia tone sentimentality like Much Love and Bury Us All. It will definitely get a lot of listens from me because I'm a fan, but when all is said and done, and knowing that we do eventually have to knock this video on the head, I'm just going to give it a 6.8. That's just what I think though. What are you lot saying? Let me know in the comments, and check out a bunch of other punk reviews from related bands in the description. If you can be asked to do all of that, then you may as well subscribe. Tell me what more you want to see me cover. Subscribe, share some thoughts, show some love, or just have some abuse in those comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers mate, bye.